Section 62 of Popular Tales from the Norse. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Sharon Riskadal. Popular Tales from the Norse by Sir George Webb Dasent. Section 62, Soria, Moria Castle. Once on a time there was a poor couple who had a son whose name was Halvor. Ever since he was a little boy he would turn his hand to nothing, but just sat there and groped about in the ashes. His father and mother often put him out to learn this trade or that, but Halvor could stay nowhere, for when he had been there a day or two, he ran away from his master, and never stopped till he was sitting again in the ingle, poking about in the cinders. Well, one day a skipper came and asked Halvor if he hadn't a mind to be with him and go to sea and see strange lands. Yes, Halvor would like that very much, so he wasn't long in getting himself ready. How long they sailed I'm sure I can't tell, but the end of it was they fell into a great storm, and when it was blown over and it got still again, they couldn't tell where they were, for they had been driven away to a strange coast which none of them knew anything about. Well, as there was just no wind at all, they stayed lying wind-bound there, and Halvor asked the skipper's leave to go on shore and look about him. He would sooner go, he said, than lie there and sleep. "Do you think now you're fit to show yourself before folks?" said the skipper. "Why, you've no clothes but those rags you stand in." But Halvor stuck to his own, and so at last he got leave, but he was to be sure and come back as soon as ever it began to blow. So off he went and found a lovely land. Wherever he came there were fine, large, flat cornfields and rich meads, but he couldn't catch a glimpse of a living soul. Well, it began to blow, but Halvor thought he hadn't seen enough yet, and he wanted to walk a little farther, just to see if he couldn't meet any folk. So after a while he came to a broad high road, so smooth and even you might easily roll an egg along it. Halvor followed this, and when evening drew on he saw a great castle ever so far off, from which the sunbeams shone. So as he had now walked the whole day, and hadn't taken a bit to eat with him, he was as hungry as a hunter, but still the nearer he came to the castle, the more afraid he got. In the castle kitchen a great fire was blazing, and Halvor went into it, but such a kitchen he had never seen in all his born days. It was so grand and fine, there were vessels of silver and vessels of gold, but still never a living soul. So when Halvor had stood there a while and no one came out, he went and opened a door, and there inside sat a princess, who span upon a spinning wheel. "Nay, nay, now", she called out, "dare Christian folk come hither? But now you'd best be off about your business, if you don't want the Troll to gobble you up, for here lives a Troll with 3 heads." "All one to me", said the lad. "I'd be just as glad to hear he had 4 heads besides. I'd like to see what kind of a fellow he is. As for going, I won't go at all. I've done no harm, but meat you must get me, for I'm almost starved to death." When Halvor had eaten his fill, the Princess told him to try if he could brandish the sword that hung against the wall. No, he couldn't brandish it, he couldn't even lift it up. "Oh", said the Princess, "now you must go and take a pull of that flask that hangs by its side. That's what the Troll does every time he goes out to use the sword." So Halvor took a pull, and in the twinkling of an eye he could brandish the sword like nothing, and now he thought it high time the Troll came. And lo! just then up came the Troll, puffing and blowing. Halvor jumped behind the door. "Hoot-too", said the Troll, as he put his head in at the door. "What a smell of Christian man's blood! "Ay", said Halvor, "you'll soon know that to your cost", and with that he hewed off all his heads. Now the Princess was so glad that she was free, she both danced and sang. But then all at once she called her sisters to mind, and so she said: "Would my sisters were free too." "Where are they?" asked Halvor. Well, she told him all about it. One was taken away by a Troll to his castle, which lay 50 miles off, and the other by another Troll to his castle, which was 50 miles further still. "But now", she said, "you must first help me to get this ugly carcass out of the house." Yes, Halvor was so strong, he swept everything away, and made it all clean and tidy in no time. So they had a good and happy time of it, and the next morning he set off at peep of grey dawn. He could take no rest by the way, but ran and walked the whole day. When he first saw the castle, he got a little afraid. It was far grander than the first, but here too there wasn't a living soul to be seen. So Halvor went into the kitchen, and didn't stop there either, but went straight further on into the house. "Nay, nay", called out the Princess, "dare Christian folk come hither? I don't know, I'm sure, how long it is since I came here, but in all that time I haven't seen a Christian man. 'Twere best you saw how to get away as fast as you came, for here lives a Troll who has 6 heads." "I shan't go", said Halvor, "if he has 6 heads besides." "He'll take you up and swallow you down alive", said the Princess. But it was no good. Halvor wouldn't go. He wasn't at all afraid of the Troll, but meat and drink he must have, for he was half starved after his long journey. Well, he got as much of that as he wished, but then the Princess wanted him to be off again. "No", said Halvor, "I won't go. I've done no harm, and I've nothing to be afraid about." "He won't stay to ask that", said the Princess, "for he'll take you without law or leave. But as you won't go, just try if you can brandish that sword yonder, which the Troll wields in war." He couldn't brandish it, and then the Princess said he must take a pull at the flask which hung by its side, and when he had done that he could brandish it. Just then back came the Troll, and he was both stout and big, so that he had to go sideways to get through the door. When the Troll got his first head in, he called out, "Hootoo! What a smell of Christian man's blood!" But that very moment Halvor hewed off his first head, and so on, all the rest as they popped in. The Princess was overjoyed, but just then she came to think of her sisters, and wished out loud they were free. Halvor thought that might easily be done, and wanted to be off at once, but first he had to help the Princess to get the Troll's carcass out of the way, and so he could only set out the next morning. It was a long way to the castle, and he had to walk fast and run hard to reach it in time. But about nightfall he saw the castle, which was far finer and grander than either of the others. This time he wasn't the least afraid, but walked straight through the kitchen and into the castle. There sat a Princess who was so pretty there was no end to her loveliness. She too, like the others, told him there hadn't been Christian folk there ever since she came thither, and bade him go away again, else the Troll would swallow him alive. "And do you know", she said, "he has 9 heads." "Aye, aye", said Halvor, "if he had 9 other heads, and 9 other heads still, I won't go away." And so he stood fast before the stove. The Princess kept on begging him so prettily to go away, lest the Troll should gobble him up, but Halvor said, "Let him come as soon as he likes." So she gave him the Troll's sword, and bade him take a pull at the flask, that he might be able to brandish and wield it. Just then back came the Troll, puffing and blowing and tearing along. He was far stouter and bigger than the other two, and he too had to go on one side to get through the door. So when he got his first head in, he said, as the